Hi guys, good afternoon. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for Tuesday, July 21st. We'll start with the major averages. We saw, a little bit different than what we obviously a decent amount of things different than what we saw yesterday. Completely different market, I would say almost. But coming into today, what was interesting was I thought was that the Qs had some continuation. Nasdaq had some continuation from yesterday, and then immediately they started to kind of sell off right before the open. Sometimes you can kind of key in on that a little bit if there's something that's going to happen. Where there's going to be, I hate to keep using the word rotation, but it just kind of is what it is. We saw this. I'm looking on the 1 hour chart in Nasdaq. Interesting. We basically could not take this level out. So that's kind of a little bit revealing. But this started to happen around like 8 o'clock this morning when futures were up, rallying into the pre-open. And we started to see profit taking already, like, around the 8 o'clock hour, then certainly around the 9 o'clock hour. And that was something that we went over in the Tribeca Trade Group pre-market session. Right in here, we started to see things kind of weaken a little bit, and it kind of just gave you a hint that there was going to be some profit taking in the Qs. And I get it. I think I also like hate to say new traders, but I think it just is what it is. A little bit more inexperienced traders. Sometimes they think that there's always news, right? Oh, why is this name down? Why are the Qs down? Or is there news on the tape? No, there's no news. It's just people are taking money off the table. That's generally every once in a while there is something that comes out in the news that basically drives the price action because it drives people to react. But a lot of times there's not news, and I think some inexperienced traders kind of trip up a little bit is they think the market is supposed to just go up every day. And really that's not how it works, right? It's the market goes up some days, and then there's some profit taking, there's some rotation into some other things. But that is not the reason. Like the market just doesn't always gravitate up, right? It's a constant push and pull, demand, supply, a lot of factors going on. But I think after the day that we had yesterday, this was not a surprise to me. What we talked about in the pre-market session this morning was I said, hey, any of these trades that I kind of kept on from yesterday, where I was, looking to let my profits, roll, going into the following day. I said, hey, I'm going to be a net seller in the first 15 minutes. I don't want to put anything on. And again, I try to really practice what I preach. If you see what I did in the first 15 minutes, I put on like an overnight trade in Apple. I didn't even care what price. I was like, I'm out. I'm out on 9:31 this morning, and then I started to sell some other things too. Whatever I could basically, take a decent amount of profits in the first 15 minutes. I did go into so again, I waited before I bought anything because I did find some things that were attractive today. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Let me go through the rest of the performance. But again, I think this type of thing is definitely, is normal day to day to kind of to see that. And you have to set your expectations too. If you had a big day yesterday, the market, I guess, another thing, again, I'm not trying to beat up on inexperienced traders, but I feel it. I feel like, some of the things that are said, sometimes in our trading room or just on Twitter that I see that, oh, why is this stock down today? Well, it was up huge the day before. It doesn't work every day where you're going to come in and make the same amount of money every day. So that is also like a little bit of a misconception. Some traders, I think when they start trading for a living, or even if they're doing it part-time, they think they're going to make the same amount of money every day. It doesn't work that way. What you want to do is the days where the market is really trending and when things have momentum to them, those are the days where you want to really make sure that you're doing that, that you're making bigger than normal profits. And the days when there's not momentum or there's a little bit of selling pressure on the tape, or if there's rotation, those are days where you want to play a little bit of defense. right? So you want to control what you can control, as I say all the time. And of course, this video is for information purposes only, as I say in every video, not giving out any advice or recommendations. But you want to control what you can control, which is your risk, right? And move around, as the market changes. What you want to be able to adapt, and something like that where um, you know where momentum, just about every momentum name was up yesterday, huge. A lot of them, maybe not every single one, but a lot of them were up huge, right? You want to be taking, always, you want to be taking off more than you're putting on, right? So if you added a couple trades into yesterday, that's fine, but you always want to be like a net seller, right? Taking more off the table after a huge day, and then kind of letting the dust settle a little bit. And again, that's how, like, in the first 15 minutes, because the market was up, I wanted to take off those trades and watch and see what happens for the rest of the day with the market. So this was a very quiet trading day for me, and that's just how it works sometimes. You could see I did a couple things today, but you could see the amount of trades that I was doing yesterday just was a lot different than what I was doing today. And a couple things, if they don't work, I give things a shot. And if they don't work, I'm out of them kind of quickly on a day like this, where I didn't know if we were going to get any major follow through. So let's start with. Well, let me finish the day's recap. The other thing that was kind of interesting was, the VIX did end up going up today. So the market finished just barely. I would call it flat. SPY finished up less than 20 basis points. The VIX was up 1.5% for the day. Here's the close. It started in red, finished in green. I don't really make too much of a thing about this. Some people get focused on, oh well, the market was up today and the VIX was up. Yeah, but really small. Like, if I thought the VIX was up like 3 or 4, maybe 5%, and the market was up like 0.5% or 1%, I would say, oh, that's a warning, a little bit of a warning sign, like we saw at the beginning of last week, where we saw the VXN, which is the VIX for the Qs, and the Qs also up decently that day. That kind of gave off a little bit of a warning sign. Today, I don't really think that's the case. I think today was just more in line with, hey, it's earning season. We got really like a nice gift yesterday. Don't push it into earning season, right? You have to kind of think about things rational too. So, and I was very pleasantly surprised at the day that we got yesterday, considering something I talked about Thursday and Friday of last week was that it's generally a little bit more difficult when earning season, in the middle of earning season, to get a nice trending day. It's more often than not choppy type of price action. So small caps were the leader today. So we kind of saw, you can see the theme of the day I had was that a little bit different areas outperformed. And I mean, look at what the oil names. And again, I don't have any, I didn't put on 5 trades in the energy space. I don't have any exposure to the energy space. So that's fine. These things can rally without me because, as you know and have heard me talk about for a while, I'm a trend trader. So I'm really not looking to get involved in names that are in downtrends. They can bounce, right? As I've said, if you're a regular viewer of my videos, you know that I talk about how in downtrends names can bounce, and you could play them for a day trade or an overnight trade or something like that. But for the most part, I'm a swing trader, and I'm just not going to play a lot of names that are relatively weak compared to the overall market, and I'm not going to try to guess when they're going to bounce. That's just not for me. So yes, XLE is now in value, and if you really like energy, you could use a stop of 37 on the XLE ETF to see if there's some continuation in this group. But again, like I try to give you examples too. Last week I talked about, hey, maybe Boeing sees a couple days of a bounce, and we got one day, and that was it. It's not in an uptrend, so you have to really ask yourself, like, why do you think things are going to reverse trend? They can do it. Things do reverse trend, but it usually takes a while. It's I think much harder for names to reverse a trend than it is just to stick with the trend. right? And that's the whole philosophy behind trend trading. And you can read various different books on trend trading. It's a very disciplined approach, and it's an approach that uses less emotion and less stories on financial media, and sometimes is just a little bit boring because you're just sticking to the trend and you're buying, when names, come into support in a trend, and you're selling a little bit, you're selling the rips and you're buying the dips. That's trend trading. This kind of stuff, unless I really try to hit a trade on a turn. But I just don't have a lot of exposure to the banks either, which also outperform. So by the way, this is good, and I got a lot. I got some questions about the banks. This is the banking ETF, right? People are saying, some questions about, oh, are the banks going to lead now? I don't think so because they're in nasty downtrends, but they're going to bounce. So even though this looks like a big day, right, up 5%, if you look at the chart, you kind of realize it's not such a big day. So again, it's healthy for this group. Like yesterday, the one thing that we kept hearing about yesterday was, oh, the Qs are up, but if you look at the equally weighted S&P, that was down on the day. There's bad market breath. Well, isn't it good then when the banks actually rally for the overall market? Yeah, I think it's healthy. So, am I going to participate in every group that bounces? No. Like I said, every once in a while I will try to catch a trade. So again, there's no news. I got a couple questions too. But why is biotech selling off today? It's it's the same reason why it went up the last couple days. There's people that are taking profits after a group has gone up, right? This group is broken out, and after one, two, after a few days of taking out the highs, they're going to see profit taking from time to time, right? So again, nothing. I'm not coming out with anything breaking here, right? People names go up, they make new highs. There's a little bit of profit taking, right? You could look at this, right? Here's a little bit of profit taking here. Find support at the 20-day moving average, rallies, digests a little bit, breaks higher, digests a little bit, profit taking, and then boom, we're out to new highs again. So, this kind of stuff all depends on your time frame. If you're not, you know, um, so focused on the short term, like this kind of stuff, you're hoping for because you can get in a little bit cheaper, right? If you are one of those traders who has patience and is following the trend like this over time, you kind of learn to love the pullbacks because that's when you can get into some names a little bit cheaper. Now, again, was I buying biotech on this dip? No, because I kind of want to see where it goes a little bit. The 20-day moving average is a nice place. So again, you don't have to just buy just because you see a little bit of red on the tape. You can kind of wait a little bit and see where things go, and then wait for your next signal. But again, if I haven't said this 5 times already, perfectly normal to see some groups see some profit taking. Again, like the clean energy, like solar. We can look at the solar ETF too, right? After a move like this, it's going to see some profit taking. It's going to check back eventually to back into support. So in this move, something with solar, if you're not taking if you got long in here, or it doesn't even matter where. But at this point, like if you're not taking some off the table, that's a second VPOC that was taken out yesterday. You have to ask yourself, like, if trading is the thing for you. If you're a long-term investor and your time frame is long, then maybe you don't need to be taking profits. But if you're on the shorter time frame and you've watched solar names, the solar ETF go from $36 to 45 in less than a month, and you're not thinking about taking some off the table, then I don't know what to tell you. Because again, I think there's a lot of unrealistic expectations out there by some newer traders that things are just going to go up every day for you. That's not how the market works. So that said, I like to always kind of air out some things that when I see some of these things that on Twitter about why is the market down today, that kind of thing. So what did I trade today? So a couple things that I've was kind of positioning in for a little bit. I had this palladium trade on. Palladium, with the rest of the metals, really, really nice move out of this consolidation, and we caught this thing beautifully. It gave us a little bit of shake and bake. This is the Palladium futures. There's no options on PALL, which is kind of a little bit of a stinker. I would love there to be options, but I'll tell you, this ETF is not liquid. If you've tried trading this thing, the spreads are wide in this. So even if they had options, I don't think they would be necessarily liquid enough to be positioned in. So this thing almost took out the VPOC. I did take a target in this, but I'm going to try to hold on to this position a little bit. But yeah, that's a nice that's a nice gain from where we position in this trade. Also, I put on a little bit of Costco. I like this group. It's showing some relative strength, even though I don't like how Costco, and I did take this trade off. In my short-term account, I have Costco on. In my long-term account, yeah, in the tactical, sorry, not long-term account, but the tactical portfolio. But this group tried to go higher today. I saw strength in a couple different names in this group. I'll wait for Kroger. Kroger was a trade I got out of. Oh, geez, look at that. I got out of a couple days ago because I lost patience. That happens. But Kroger is certainly, it's been a slow mover, but it's definitely, and a hard name to play in options, but it's definitely moving the the right way. But there's a few different names that are acting well within this group. And then Ali had earnings, I believe, after the close. Oh, I didn't talk about earnings at all, but we'll talk about that. This name's up to 107 here after hours, closed at 98. All right, so it's Costco. I gave some illustrations of this spice trade. So again, even though I thought today was going to be a little bit more of a challenging day in for swing trades, I think there was some day trading opportunities early on. The market webs giving us a great little trade today in in Virgin Galactic. There was some call buying, the momentum call buying that we see a lot of times on the tape, really short term stuff. And we talked about where we wanted to, I put this trade on, and I said, hey, there's a VPOC up here. That's going to be my target for the day. So a nice little cute day trade that I put on. These are really great places. I spent some time trying to answer some questions from members about how to use these virgin point of controls. Remember, this is a virgin point of control is where a lot of buyers and sellers have previously met up back here. This was the most volume back in this period. So I'm on the 1 hour chart, by the way, and price has not revisited it. So price seems to remember, right? And that's the best way I can kind of explain it to you, is that it's kind of like overhead supply. And there's particular places. I mean, this is I call this out perfectly. I said 2603 is where I want to take this trade off, and I actually took it off at 26. But you could see how it reverts back. So again, if you don't believe me, if you think like I'm drawing these lines in manually, which I'm not, that's basically how it works, because you could see I put that trade out on Twitter. I said, hey, 26 is the level where I'm going to be taking profits. Now, does it mean that this trade is done? No. I mean, that's a 1 hour, that is a 1 hour VPOC, and it's normal to see some digestion after that. So if you like this name, I would wait for it to get back above that VPOC, above 26. Because again, if we can do that, notice that there's one up here at 32. Now remember how these things work. The closer that the price is to them, the more highly probable that it'll be taken out. There's less of a magnetic pull to price when it's all the way down here at 24. This is all the way up at 32. So for example, if the price got to around 30, then yes, I would be looking to take. Unless there was some other resistance, I would be looking to take it off at, take an exit up there. And that could be your ultimate, like if you're still in a swing trade in SPCE, there is no, on the medium or longer term time frame, there is no sell signal. That's just was a day trade for me. So again, if I'm day trading, I'm going to use the 5-minute bar. I'm going to use the 1 hour, or short term swing. I use the 1 hour and I use the daily chart. So different levels to watch for different traders. I tried some Honeywell today too, because I just thought again that we were going to see some different areas, and I took it off. So again, I was kind of punchy with taking trades off, and this is fine. I took this thing off for 490, and then I just bailed on the trade, and I think it actually went a little bit higher, and then it kind of sold off a bit. Oh wow, look at this. Trump urges Americans to wear masks when not socially distancing. All right, finally. I don't talk about politics at all, but this is something I'm in favor of. So, in any event, so maybe that will impact things. I guess Trump is speaking now. All right, let me get back on track. Sorry, as headlines come out, I do like to go over them. Let me go over the rest of the trades for the day. I also thought, so again, sometimes things are going to look a little bit different. And I try to point this is a good example. This Pepsi looked great around 10, 11 o'clock this morning, but it didn't, to me, like, I don't like candles like that, even though it's still above value. So I did try a trade in Pepsi, and I posted it on Twitter as well. And I was able to take a target, September 140 calls. But listen, if it's not going to do it, I'm not going to stay in. I'm not going to be stubborn and stay in a trade. So I took this thing off at the end of the day. And by the way, that's fine. Like, I would rather err on the conservative side during earning season. So I did that. This Dollar General. I talked about Costco and so forth. This is so close to triggering that I think it's worthwhile for me to have a position. This one I kept on. I didn't know if it was going to be a day trade or not, but I started at 550. And then, whenever I'm trading options, because I think options, again, without going into detail, are much more difficult to trade than stock, I always leave myself the ability to add to a position because of the volatility of options. So somewhere in here, I did add to the position in Dollar General. Nike. So I stayed in this trade. So again, I'd like to see other things participating. Nike will be a short-term swing for me, most likely, even though I went into October calls because I did see some October calls on the tape. All I'm looking for and for this is for this to get through to basically the top of value 101, and then I will go ahead and exit the trade or leave a small portion on if it really rallies through here with momentum. And that's it. This WPM trade that we talked about, silver was, I talked about palladium already, and we had a nice swing trade in this. But, here's the thing about the call activity. We got into this trade last Friday, right? So, I believe that was on Friday I put this trade on. Or was it Thursday? WPM. Do, 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 do. Either Friday or Thursday. For some reason, I'm missing it here. It's either Friday or Thursday that I put silver wheaton on. I thought I put it on. My memory is sometimes I mesh different days together. I could have sworn I put this on Friday, but in any event, this was a nice move. You could see this little consolidation here, and then we started to. I think So I caught this whole move out of here, and lo and behold, where do they put where do they put the calls on? Whoops, they put the calls on at the absolute high. Right, and there was a little bit of call buying last week, I think, as well as PAAS. But people like I always hear this term about call activity being smart money. No, September 50 calls. So yeah, they put this. I believe they were adding to this position September calls. But here's the activity over the last 10 days in WPM. Now again, we've seen a lot of SLV calls, but I'll tell you, people associate this stuff and they always think it's smart money. Sometimes they come in and they're buying at the absolute wrong time. So, call activity today in silver wheat and after it's moved, After a silver miner has moved $5, over 10% is not where I want to be adding a trade. So again, if you do your homework, you'll find these setups without the call activity. So again, it's just another testament to that. And if you're playing this game correctly, I think selling into the call activity, also into that momentum, is also worthwhile. So that's WPM. That was another trade that we did for the day. And that's it. I forced a small target in Nike because I didn't like how the tape was looking, and then I added it right back. Once the market sold off a little bit. All right, guys. So that's it. One last thing on earnings. A couple things like Texas Instruments. They increased their guidance, right, which is usually what we want to see from a name. But I did not play Texas Instruments because I am a little bit worried about this, right? So unless you're trading after hours and are going to sell some stock versus if you're long calls, what you need to do, like you need to know, like if you're trading options, you should know how to dollar hedge. Or delta hedge, excuse me. Like if you don't know how to delta hedge, it's something that you need to learn to do, in my opinion. If you're trading any options, you should know how to hedge yourself with stock. It is a must know, so that you could lock in the profits after hours. But this is kind of why I think that earnings season overall is going to be a little bit tough, because a lot of names have just run into the quarter too much, right? So why did this name sell off? Probably because it's run up so much. So yes, good news from Texas Instruments, and I didn't see anything specifically about why it was brought down. From hitting a high of 144 all the way down to 136. But I think it's just going to be challenging to play. I think the trade that we've discussed a few times here is playing for a run into earnings, right? I talked about that yesterday with Microsoft. What did I say with Microsoft? Take the money and put it in your pocket. It was up 4% yesterday. What is it? I'm sorry, I thought Microsoft was going to report today after the close. It's tomorrow. But, maybe it'll give us a little bit of an opportunity to play Microsoft. But I will look to put on a small trade for Microsoft tomorrow. But it's already run decently. So, again, the one thing that you have to keep in check with trading is your emotions and greed, right? That's what kills people all the time, is greed. So, up 4% yesterday, that is often more, as I went over yesterday, often more than Microsoft moves for earnings. And you got it yesterday. Look at, you took out a VPOC yesterday. So put that in perspective. I'll leave it there for the video because I'm already 27 minutes in. Have a great night, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. We've got a whole bunch of things to go over tomorrow, so looking forward to that, and a lot more names that we'll be reporting earnings.